This person who's in the White House promised a whole lot of people who supported him and voted for him that he would do one thing, which is bring down costs and prices. And he lied to them. And we need to remember that as we move forward with the next series of elections. The midterms are around the corner, that it's not just about him by himself. There were others around him who perpetuated that same promise and have not followed through. They're about to go into negotiations around the continuing resolution, the budget. And I know that leaders Schumer and Jeffries are going to meet with the president, I think in the Oval Office. And good for them to go there and ask Donald Trump, the president of the United States, to justify why he is proposing to cut Medicaid, why he is willing to shut down the government for the sake of putting on the backs of working people the tax cut he gave to the richest people in America.
What happens when the true believers start to doubt? What happens when the ones who wore the hats, waved the flags, chanted the name, they begin to whisper, this is not what we signed up for, because it's happening right now as we speak. Not in the shadows, not in the fringes, it's happening in plain sight. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, bro, like, come on, Nick Fuentes. All these people are super MAGA supporters of Donald Trump. They have been for the past 10 years or whatever. And now, names that once were untouchable in MAGA world, names that built the movement, names that brought millions to Trump's feet. And now, they are turning, not quietly, not gently, publicly, fiercely, unforgivably. And the question every soul must ask tonight is not, what happens to Trump? The question is, what happens to us when the empire's most loyal soldiers start seeing clearly? This is the Ancient Watchman, and tonight we're gonna walk through the numbers, the names, and the deeper truth behind the unraveling. Because this is not just politics, this is awakening at a mass scale, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. And awakening, and once it starts, it cannot be stopped. Welcome back to this Friend Night Miami. This is your host, Shamar, aka the Water Wizard, the Ancient Watchman. Yeah, a lot of things are happening. I'm pretty sure you guys been following this whole circus, this whole program, this whole political system and agendas, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna go pretty quickly and run down to the information, but welcome to this live. Gather around, everybody. If you like our content, please share, subscribe, and thanks for being here.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran.
So the numbers don't lie. Let me give you the data. Cold, hard, unavoidable. A new Fox News poll showed that 57% of American voters disapprove of Trump's overall job performance. Not 47, not 52, 50%. that number has remained largely unchanged since November. And so cost of living, the approval is 32% and the disapproval is 67%. So basically 2/3 of Americans say the president is failing them on the cost of living, right? That's basically what everybody was saying. What's that right here?
This person who's in the White House promised a whole lot of people who supported him and voted for him that he would do one thing, which is bring down costs and prices. And he lied.
Anyway, so that's basically the points that we were talking about. The 60% cost of living, everything went up, food, rent, and all this other stuff. The Harvard Caps/Harris poll tells a similar story. Trump's approval rating sits at 46% overall, with his lowest marks on tariffs, which is 43%, and responding to anti-ICE protests is 42%. But here's the kicker. 72% of independent voters disapprove of Trump's performance. 78% say he's focused on the wrong issues. These are not Democrats. These are the persuadables, they call, the ones who decide elections and they're walking away. So, but there's a lot of people that say that nobody's selecting everybody, that everybody's basically pre-selected. It don't matter if someone else has the most popular votes or they win by a major or a big margin on the voting systems and stuff. So which people have done in the past, and people are saying that everybody's basically throwing the little ball at each other, blaming themselves. Oh, you cheated on the election. No, you cheated on the election. This is not a third. So there's fights amongst all of that, but the persuadables, they don't really choose like Democrats or Republicans. But at the end of the day, a lot of these unpersuadables or persuadable people that never vote, the ones that can, they will basically decide what happens in the midterms. So
I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for.
If you want, compassionate people to be on board with you, you can't deport gay hairdressers seeking asylum. That's crazy.
The president of the United States goes, we're going to be using American cities to train our troops because we're going into Portland and we're going into Chicago. This is a bit psychotic.
yeah, so that's some of the Trump podcasters that basically brought Trump to like a broader audience, basically young adults. And that's basically the group or the demographic that decided the election for Trump. But if it was for these podcasters, all these MAGA podcasters, bro, like I don't think Trump would have won. But anyways, so Tucker Carlson, the most influential voice in the independent conservative world, said this about the Iran war. Quote, this happened because Israel wanted it to happen. This is Israel's war. This is not the United States war. The war is not being waged on behalf of American national security objectives. This war is waged purely because Israel wanted it to be waged, end quote. He called the attack, quote, absolute, disgusting, and evil, end quote. Especially the fact that there was a projectile or a missile that hit a school of girls. And I think it was 100 of them that basically perished in that bombing illegally, right? And so nobody's really raising the hand or raising the voice at such atrocities and so on and so forth. So there's like a lot of hypocrisy within the media anyway. Megyn Kelly, with millions of listeners, said, quote, no one should have died for a foreign country. I don't think those service members died for the United States. I think they died for Iran or Israel, end quote. She added, I have serious doubts about what we're doing, end quote. Matt Walsh, who has over 4 million followers on X, went scorched earth. Quote, so far we've heard that although we killed the whole Iranian regime, this was not a regime change war. And although we obliterated their nuclear program, we had to do this because of their nuclear program. And although Iran was not planning any attacks on the US, they also might have been, depending on who you ask. The messaging on this thing is, to put it mildly, confused, end quote.
What's your message to Americans who think that bombing of Iran was in some way sort of intended to distract Americans from the Epstein files?
Well, listen, I think we're seeing this pattern, right? Trump has impulsively went in on Venezuela. He impulsively went in on Iran. There was no exit and no end game for either of these situations. It led to increased global instability everywhere he goes, and every time he's done that, it has been consistent with a spike or a revelation in what is happening with the Epstein files. I don't think that coincidence is something to dismiss off the cuff. I think that he feels existentially tied to it, and I actually think that it is one reason that he must be removed from office, because if the Epstein files has such a hold on President Trump and this administration that they are willing.
So yeah, that was AOC speaking out against all the injustice. We have another one. Marjorie Taylor Greene, once Trump's fiercest defender, said on Kelly's show, quote, "Make America Great Again was supposed to be America first. Not Israel first, not any foreign country first, not any foreign people first, but the American people first," end quote. She added, "I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the F is happening to this country," end quote. Why? This is why. Watch.
MAGA is, I think people are realizing it was all a lie. It was a big lie for the people. What MAGA is really serving is, in this administration, who they're serving is their big donors, the big donors that donated all the money and continue to donate to the president's PACs and donate to the 250th anniversary, and are donating to the big ballroom. And if they're donating to all these things, those are the people that get the special favors, they get the government contracts, they get the pardons, or somebody they love or one of their friends gets a pardon. And it's the foreign countries that are running the show here. It's the major big corporations and what is best for the world. That's really what MAGA is. That's the results. That's what we're seeing after one full year of MAGA.
And then there's Nick Fuentes, the far-right influencer, who told his followers that the only viable response was to, quote, vote Democrat or stay home, claiming Republicans had, quote, forfeited their mandate, end quote. Quote, "They promise no new wars. They promise mass deportations in America first. Americans will die in terrorist attacks and in missile strikes so that Israel can expand its borders," end quote. That's what Nick Fuentes said.
This has to be the breaking point. This is the breaking point for the GOP coalition. You buried the Epstein files. There is no border wall. You didn't deliver on mass deportations. You cut corporate tax rates for the rich by cutting Medicaid again. No infrastructure bill, no middle class tax cuts. You got to refund the tariffs. And now we're in a regime change war with Iran. That's the breaking point. I'm out. I'm done. I am off the Trump train. I am not voting in 26. If Rubio or Vance are on the ticket in any form in 28, I'm voting for a Democrat.
Yeah, so people who build their entire identity around supporting this president are now saying vote Democrat. The unthinkable is becoming thinkable. So, yeah, that's basically what's going on. So there was an interview that Rubio was on, and he basically said that, quote, "We knew that there was going to be an Israel action. We knew that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launch those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties," end quote. So basically, the United States is at war because Israel decided to go to war. Not because America was threatened, not because the intelligence demanded it, not because diplomacy failed, because Israel wanted it. And the White House, instead of saying no, said, "We'll do it first so we control the narrative." This is the Archon playbook laid bare. The same pattern we've seen for decades. Iraq 2003, lies with the WMDS. Libya in 2011, lies about humanitarian intervention. Syria, lies about chemical weapons. And now Iran, lies about, quote, imminent threats. The CIA itself has confirmed there was no intelligence showing Iran planned to attack the US. The Associated Press reported that US intelligence showed no preemptive Iranian strike plan. Reuters echoed the Pentagon officials admitted no intelligence on Iran attacking first. The House of Commons Library noted in 2025 that US intelligence judged Iran was not building nuclear weapons. Every justification was a lie. And the MAGA base, the ones who trusted Trump to end wars, not start them, is waking up to that lie. That's basically what's happening.
Donald Trump should be impeached and removed for this. All of his supporters should turn on him. It's the absolute betrayal of everything that he ran and campaigned on and everything that he stood for. Iran has done over and over again. But now we've pushed them to the point where they probably don't feel that.
Yeah, so that's even Dave Smith, another podcaster that supported Trump going into the election. So basically, all the MAGA base are turning on Trump because of what's going on. All these things that he promised he hasn't delivered.
Are you done with Donald Trump, or could you see a way that you would end up perhaps voting for him?
I will say is that he's been a chronic disappointment, and I feel embarrassed that I told people to go vote for him because this wasn't going to happen, and it is happening. But I just think that the picture of politics in America is going to look very differently because of his actions. So I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. But this is not the candidate that I voted for.
There it is. Let's see what else. What else we got? Yeah, so the the people are waking up. Not just the usual suspects, not just the anti-war left, or the MAGA base, the believers. When Tucker Carlson said, quote, "This is Israel's war," end quote, millions heard it. When Matt Walsh said, quote, "The messaging is confused," end quote, millions nodded. When MTG says, quote, "America first, not Israel first," millions feel the truth in their bones. So the spell is breaking, and when a spell breaks, anything is possible. So this is why a lot of people are really waking up to what's really going on.
With a bitch like me, I'm not going to shut my mouth, and I'm not going to be intimidated. As an American who's protected by the First Amendment, who is tasked with doing a job that requires me to dig in, not get scared and run away, like a little bitch, right? I'm the kind of bitch that likes to dig in, and I'm not going to be intimidated by someone who has far more concern with a foreign country as opposed to our country here in America. I'm an American. I'm going to look out for America. Israel controls the United States. And I meant it. How are you going to argue otherwise? Okay, almost every single lawmaker on the left or right does the bidding of the Israeli government, either because they are legally bribed by AIPAC or they're afraid that AIPAC is going to target them in some political campaign so they don't win re-election. I believe there's also a possibility of a blackmail operation. But yeah, I mean, we do anything and everything Israel wants.
Yeah, there it is right there. So like I said, a lot of people are, a lot of MAGA base, a lot of MAGA podcasters, a lot of MAGA influencers that basically draw millions of followers. They're basically turning against President Trump. So that's what's going on. That's the reality. What does that mean for the midterms and beyond? So the midterms horse race is tied basically 50% between the Republicans and Democrats. But among likely voters, Republicans have only a 4-point edge. So, you know, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the midterms, but it will be decided. The people have seen it. The people have seen that a lot of people are complaining that Trump hasn't delivered, and you know, it is what it is.
So if you are contemplating leaving MAGA and you're scared to tell people, yes, it's scary, there's fear around it, but once you do it, you're like, why was I even scared of that?
It just seems like this whole thing is nothing but deception, corruption, lies, division. This country has never been more fucking divided.
He doesn't care about anyone in this country. He wants to take away your health insurance, your kids' health insurance, your kids' education. He wants to take away the safety of the United States. Just let go. No one's going to blame you. We're happy if you leave. You'll be happier if you leave too.
Now, listen to you. You need to start doing the will of the people, not what you think. You are becoming a dictator, and I'm telling you that right now.
So, like, thank God. Like, what are we going to do? Be just, hey, you got a scarlet letter on you. We're never going to let you into the club. It's exactly what we want to.
Yeah, so there it is. You know, a lot of MAGA, they left their MAGA base, so believes political beliefs and political associations because they've seen through the veil. They've seen through the veils. They've seen through the lies, you know. So a lot of people are leaving all that concept, all these racism. A lot of people are opening their eyes because the information is coming out. The archons want you confused. They want you to think this is just politics, just teams, just quote our side versus their side. And it's not. It's the people who profit from war versus the people who die in them. That's the only team that matters. Yeah, so that was the first, you know, they want us confused, they want us divided, they want us to keep on fighting amongst each other, blacks versus white versus browns, brown versus this and on the third. And so everybody's divided. And so while we fight amongst themselves, they're basically helping themselves, they enriching themselves. And there's a theocracy, a technocratic movement within this political system that is controlling how you live, and if the prices of things go up or down, and you can do nothing about it, right? But can you? So speak the truth. That's the second thing. Not democratic truth, not Republican truth, but the truth, right? So a lot of people call it like, oh, we're living in a spiritual warfare, or we're under spiritual warfare. Yeah, of course. There's always spiritual warfare, you know. A lot of these there's you know, a lot of people talk about spiritual warfare, and it says that there's principalities and governors out of these realms that control the powers that be in the background, right? This is where a lot of people dived up deep into like the reptilian concepts and stuff, and shapeshifters, which is basically a very taboo subject to talk about, because people are like, where is the evidence? Where's the evidence? Well, the evidence has always been around for thousands of years. But anyways, that's besides the point. I'm going off the subject. Yeah, so speak the truth, not Democrat truth, not Republican truth, but the truth. Name what Rubio admitted. Name the CIA reports. Name the MAGA defections. Name the pattern that stretches from 1953 to today. The archons fear being named. Third, connect. You're not alone. Children of light are everywhere in MAGA hats, in Bernie shirts, in places you never expect. Right? So this is not about hatred. It's about truth. It's about a lot of people claim within the MAGA movement to believe in God, but barely do the things that even Christ said, right, in the Sermon of the Mount of Olives, when he was speaking to the poor and basically doing socialist things, you know, helping the poor, helping the widow, helping the orphans, and this and that and the third. So that was the message of Christ about love and unity, about loving your neighbor as yourself. Because how can you say that you love God and then, you know, you hate your brother? Right? That was the whole concept of Christ. So, and it's the same applies to us here in this world. Like, how can we say that, oh, we love God, but you hate your brother, you hate your sister, you hate your neighbor because he doesn't look like you, right? And a lot of people say, well, this nation should have been a white nation. Well, this nation was a brown nation first. It was a black brown nation. It always has been. And so, you know, and so again, going back to love your neighbor as thyself. So the children of light are everywhere in MAGA hats, in Bernie shirts, in places you never expect. Find them, amplify them, love them. And then remember who you are. Lastly, you're not just a voter, you know, you're not just a citizen, you're not a consumer of news, you are clay and animated by divinity. And the I am sees through every lie. The I am outlasts every empire. The I am is the seed of the new world. You know, the light of God that lives inside every human being. So imagine that's basically what said, like, how can one fulfill the entire law, right? Because they were basically talking to a lot of Jews that were following the Torah, right? The Ten Commandments, and there's like 213 commandments or something like that. It's not just the 10. The 10 are the major ones, right? Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, you know, whatever. Kill, shall not do this and that and the third. So those are the 10 commandments that everybody knows, but there's more. And so Jesus was having a conversation with them about like divinity. Like God is inside of yourself. You are the light, right? And he literally spoke about the establishment back in those days. The Roman Empire basically was controlling the state of Jerusalem, and so a lot of the Jews there, a lot of the people felt oppressed, kind of like a lot of the Palestinians feel oppressed, you know, at the hands of the Israeli government right now. So anyway, so
I voted once for Donald Trump in 2016. I fell for the propaganda. I watched Fox News. I've learned that the right-wing media is nothing but a propaganda machine. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me every damn day, it's a cult.
And for just like the Republican voters, right, across America who maybe feel like, I've always voted Republican, what would you want to say to those folks?
Step over to your nearest mirror, look yourself in the eye, and ask yourself if the principles, the words, the actions, the behaviors of this administration are actually in line with the teachings of Jesus Christ. Jesus would have stood with the vulnerable and marginalized. He would not have deported them. He would not have persecuted them. He would, you know, he literally stood with the prostitutes and the lepers and the poor, and he wasn't out there selling, you know, saying, Peter, you know, I'm not going to do any more miracles unless you invest in my Jesus meme coin. He was literally serving the poor. Yeah. These people and
so there it is right there. So the MAGA base have spoken. They have spoken their concerns and how they feel shame that they voted for Trump. Now they changed their minds because they have seen through the veil. There was a farmer in Massachusetts in 1786. His name was Daniel Shays. He had fought for liberty, he had bled for independence, and he returned home to find himself enslaved to death. His land seized, his body threatened with prison, his voice ignored by the Boston elites. So he rose. He led others, veterans like himself, to shut down the courts, to demand justice, to remind the ruling class that the people have a spirit that cannot be crushed. They call him traitor. They call him anarchist. They hanged 2 of his men, and yet his rebellion forced change. The elites had to listen. The system had to adjust. And the tree of liberty was refreshed, not with the blood of tyrants that time, but with the courage of farmers who refused to bow. Today, a new rebellion is stirring, not with muskets, not with pitchforks or weapons, but with truth, with witness, with the courage to say, this is not what I signed up for, like they have said. Tucker said it, Megyn said it, Matt Walsh said it, MTG said it, Nick Fuentes said it, millions are saying it. And the archons, they're panicking. They see their lost media fracturing. They see their base questioning. They see their spell breaking. And they don't know what to do, because you cannot bomb an awakening. You cannot tear a realization. You can't kill list a soul that has remembered. So here's my call to you, child of lights. Do not despair at the unraveling. Celebrate it. The unraveling is the precursor to the reweaving, rebirth. The crumbling is the necessary prelude to building. The old world is cracking, not because it's weak, but because a new world is pushing up from beneath. And you are part of that new world, not in some distant future, but now. Every time you speak truth, you crack the old world. Every time you love the unloved, you crack the old world. Every time you see through the lie, you crack the old world. Every time you say, I am, not as an ego, but as recognition, you crack the old world. And one day, sooner than they think, the old world will fall. And from its rubble, the children of light will build. Rajiantian. Heaven and earth. Not after that, not far away, here in the space between us, in the hall we built together on the sacred skin of Mother Earth. Yeah, there it is. That was the message that I wanted to share. That was the script, whatever you want to call it. Thanks for coming on live. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tune in next Friday night, Miami. I wanted to touch base on something else, because it's a lot of stress that can be that you can experience watching a lot of this news, a lot of this negativity, a lot of this, political toxicity, the violence, and so on and so forth, and injustice, and lies, and darkness, and all this other stuff. And you can see the energy is dark and it's dense, and so if you're like absorbing a lot of the content like that, it can stress you out. So I'm gonna step out of these subjects because it's redundant. We know what's going on. I've shared a video of the history of Iran versus the United States and Israel and also connections. So the conflict will continue because Like, I don't know if you guys heard AOC when she was saying that.
What's your message to Americans who think that bombing of Iran was in some way sort of intended to distract Americans from the Epstein files?
Well, listen, I think we're seeing this pattern, right? Trump has impulsively went in on Venezuela. He impulsively went in on Iran. There was no exit and no end game for either of these situations. It led to increased global instability everywhere he goes, and every time he's done that, it has been consistent with a spike or a revelation in what is happening with the Epstein files. I don't think that that coincidence is something to dismiss off the cuff. I think that he feels existentially tied to it, and I actually think that it is one reason that he must be removed from office, because if the Epstein files has such a hold on President Trump and this administration that they are willing.
All right. There it is, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to share our videos. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. Have a great night.